How you guys doing? You guys have a good lunch?
Yeah.
Awesome, cool. This is really fun to be here again. It's been a great conference so far. It's really cool to see all the problems and challenges that we all very connected, and it's kind of cool to see how we all sort of solve the same issues and same types of things come up. Pretty cool. So anyways, my name's William Paoli, and I'm from Atlassian, manage the web team developers there. And we're responsible for all of the marketing at Atlassian.com and hipchat.com, and pretty much any web marketing that goes on at Atlassian, our team handles, and pretty much the entire team is here right now today. Minus all the developers are here, none of the designers. But I want to introduce you a newer member of our team. His name is Dupuy, and he came with a lot of CMS background, and we're really, really happy to have him. So,
yep, I'm Nick, web developer, and when I started, I just dove headfirst into Magnolia and was just blown away by how extendable it was. So yeah, it kind of helped get us reach a balance between the chaos and control.
Yeah, that's definitely a theme that I've noticed here. I've heard the word chaos be used a ton of times already. It might have been subconscious because of the title of this talk, I'm not sure. But there, obviously in marketing and building web pages, there is a ton of chaos. We want to move fast. One thing that I took notes of people's previous talks, like lifespan of content came up, and I've definitely noticed that is true. Like the lifespan of content is shrinking all the time. The desire to iterate quickly is there. There's a sense of urgency constantly in marketing. There's a strong desire to constantly iterate and change and react. Self-service is another topic that's come up, and that's always been something that we try to find the balance of self-service while still maintaining control or still maintaining quality. I don't want to say control, but you've got to control that. Brand consistency is another topic that comes up. So we're going to kind of go through a little bit of how we try and keep that in control while also giving the freedom to the marketers that we're trying to empower to make great web pages. So we do all types of stuff at Atlassian, and it's very common to what you guys do. We're constantly iterating on our product tours. We have multiple products that have their own marketing needs, and so they have different styles, different flavors of tours that we try and manage. Landing pages of all different types for campaigns, different types of products releases. We also have multiple different types of events and conferences that we put on. All have different audiences, all have different themes. They change themes every year. And all this stuff is pretty intense to keep up with. A little Ferris Bueller for you. With multiple designers, multiple developers, shifting deadlines, things move pretty fast. And if you don't stop and look around for a while, things get really messed up. And it just happens. So I like this image because this is kind of, I think, how we feel as we do this. I got this awesome picture of Magnolia's Ben Price doing a jump, if you guys know him. I took this picture of him when we went mountain biking last year. Yeah, as we jam down this path in product marketing, it's really difficult to stay balanced and keep in control and nail the landing. So as as a developer and leader on our team, we really have like three main audiences that we're working for, how I look at it. We're designing workflows for our designers and our web producers. And how many people here have heard the term web producers before? Or used that? So it's kind of an ambiguous role. It's a little bit new to us as well, but it's the idea of somebody that is not necessarily a developer, but they have development knowledge, They're kind of a liaison between the content creators or the content marketers and the developers. And the idea is that this person can kind of manage the web presence and create web pages that are consistent with design and consistent with code, and are still providing, a good experience. So another thing we want to do is make sure we have a great editing experience for our marketers. They can go in, they can create pages, they can edit things. So we're working with Magnolia. We're trying to keep that audience in mind as well. And of course, most importantly, is a great user experience for their new customers, existing customers, the people that are actually using our website. And that includes performance, that includes SEO, so these are all the things that we're encompassing, from the build process, for us, our own workflows when it comes to working with Git, when it comes to working with dialogues and templates of Magnolia, we're handling that. And then, of course, we always are having to think about the end user experience, which is actually using the website. Oh, sorry.
So naturally, though, designs become inconsistent over time. And we noticed a lot of similar designs being brought to us as developers where components were being built in slightly different ways. And that could be something like slight variations in font size, color, and spacing. Here's just a couple of examples. As you can see, they're pretty conceptually the same design, but they're slightly different execution. So like we have black icons, black heading, the icons are on top. The paragraph spacing and color is a little bit off. It's essentially the same thing, but it can lead to an inconsistent user experience from page to page. So
we need to try to figure out how to reel this in. Really, we work with a great team of designers, and they're very awesome. And so what we need to do, what we ended up noticing is that when they were faced with a new project, they would kind of approach it from scratch. And what we ended up doing was solving the same exact problems over and over again. And so we come down to solutions that were, let me go back one, that were very similar. Like these solutions probably got driven to by the same problem. They're solved in a slightly different way. And why not choose one and make that be the standard default? So that's what we did. We got together with the designers and identified what the most common patterns that were being used on the site were. And we were able to actually have a designer-driven library of patterns which now has a name. We're calling it the Web Pattern Library, or WPL. And this is version 1 of, it looks really bad on the screen. It looks really cool on the screen. But it's just because you're not seeing any of the images or anything like that. There's placeholder images and stuff like that. So basically, our designers came up with a design pattern library, and we decided it would be really cool to build this into Magnolia in a really nice, usable way for our web producers and our developers.
So in the past, what we found ourselves doing was copying nodes from one page to another, and we do that in the JCR browser, which is fine for developers familiar with the node structure, but for web producers and editors, we weren't as comfortable with them in the JCR moving things around, and nor were they, and I think there's a good reason to avoid that. So for duplicating content, the standard approach would start by finding similar components in the JCR, duplicate them, and move them into other pages. That turned out to be pretty hands-on, especially for us as developers trying to reuse content. We shouldn't really be doing that. So we took to extending this create component action class, and that worked really well. That allowed editors to pick the node to import using JCR browser.
That was a neat tweak, right?
Was it? It was very similar. So it was a combination of the duplicate component and the add component.
Big props to Jan for his neat tweaks article. If you guys haven't read his, applause.
Yes.
Thanks, Rich. I just, sorry to interrupt you, Nick. I forgot to give props to that Jan inspired a lot of these things that we're showing today. Jan's blog posts on neat tweaks kind of really inspired. So if you haven't seen those, like, look at Magnolia's blog and check out Jan's stuff, because we stole it and modified it.
And it's awesome. Yeah. So that worked really well. Basically, it gave us a JCR browser dialog to pick what node you wanted to import onto your current page. But even with the scripted node names, this solution turned out to be really troublesome for web producers and editors still, mainly because the concept of the JCR is still a little bit out of their reach. But we did end up trying to use a different route, and that was there is a preview component dialog that we wanted to try and link up to nodes so that we could have thumbnails linking to nodes in a way to duplicate component. We're front-enders though, so we struggled with that and ended up going a little bit different route. We found out that playing around with Magnolia's REST API, we could do this in a very front-end way. So hence our own WPL neat tweak. So I'm just going to show that really quick.
So we're going to do a lot of live demo coding, which usually goes wrong. But we have our fingers crossed.
Okay, so I'm just going to add a fake page here. Set our prototype template. Cool.
So now we see we've got a button over there.
This is a button to our web pattern library. Yep.
Sorry.
So there you see, here's a thumbnail-driven representation of the JCR for our template page. And basically, we can just choose which section we want to import, and there it is on this page. There's probably a few ways to achieve this. Our approach utilizes our own edit mode JavaScript framework, mostly because as front-enders, we were struggling really with the Java preview component dialog. But with Magnolia's REST API, the awesome framework that's built there, we knew that we could include this JavaScript in our edit mode templates and build this pattern library button. So it's really just a modal dialog that we bind to the action bar. And to build that modal, first we get a list of sections on the pattern library template page. And so there it is in the JCR. That's our pattern library page. We send an AJAX request to the nodes API and set a depth of 1, and we get all those sections as data objects that we can then render with HTML. So when a user clicks a thumbnail, we kick off the import node function, and that gets a full node structure at a given path. And once we have that data, we'll run this process import function. That'll basically figure out what the next section node name should be so that we can get a unique name. And then that will then kick off like a walk of the template structure that we got back from the REST API. So it'll walk that and recreate those nodes on the current page. So using Magnolia's REST API, we're reliably connecting that content creation to the front end with just a little bit of JavaScript. So let's say we have this new design, and we've been delivered this design from our designers. We know like that's kind of our common workflow, is to just be in collaboration with designers on the fact that they're using existing pattern library components. And just for example, let's say we know this top hero section doesn't exist yet. So I'm I'm kind of going to show what a web producer or what an editor would do to complete this design, and then show a little bit about how we as developers would build it into the pattern library. So let's build the page. Another live demo. Okay, so typically I'll have my design file, and I'll just kind of look at it. There it is. So I'm going to add a demo here, and I'm going to call it demo. All right. So with our prototype page, we can already have the header and footer pretty well established. What I'm going to do is just start building this page. So I'm going to drop in sub-navigation. Let's get a heading block. We'll add, looks like a yellow divider, some logos. Let's get, I won't do all of this.
Come on, Nick.
3-column icon, text, image, block. And one more, 1-column CTA. So I've just pretty much built this page in a way that editors can use to go in and just edit this content really easily.
That was pretty amazing.
So back to us from a developer's perspective, that kind of shows you what we were aiming for to enable authors and web producers. But from the workflow that we would typically be doing, we have this component to build in Magnolia to use as a pattern, and it's this graphic hero section.
Because this part was missing from the design, we actually didn't have this in the web pattern library yet. And so there's two ways we can approach that. We'll either get it, the idea of the pattern library, you don't mind if okay. The idea of the pattern library is that, these are blessed designs from our designers, right? Not everything we do is going to fit into that. But we want to have a consistent starting point, and that's basically what we're going for here. So a theme today has been consistency, and this is what we're trying to bring in with this. So for example, we didn't have a video section thingy over there for this in our web pattern library. What we're going to do right now is show you, we're going to pretend like this new video thing actually has been approved to be part of now our new WPL. It's a new component that we want to add. So we're going to just walk you through how we would add that piece.
Yeah, we're going to do another live demo. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, this one's a little riskier.
All right, so as a developer here going into this template page, we'd open up our pattern library page. We'd start by adding a new section, and these are kind of the building blocks that William was talking about, but we'll add a section here, and we're going to give it an image for just a placeholder, which happens to be this exact design because of this demo. So we'll select that. Typically, a designer would upload these assets beforehand so that editors can just pick whichever image they want to use. We're going to set the alignment center. And let's add a column. And we're going to add a video link, which is just our own generic component for playing video. So
yeah, we load most of our videos are actually hosted on YouTube.
Add a play button. Okay, so there's our new section. It's automatically brought into this web pattern library modal because it exists as a new node in the JCR on this page. but it's not very user-friendly yet. So it's kind of mysterious what you'd be adding there.
So let me just, like, this was a point that confused me a little bit, so let me just walk over that real quick. So because Nick added that to that content page, he added a new component in that particular content page. It gets pulled into this modal automatically. So any section, any JCR node that we add to that web pattern library page automatically gets pulled into this modal.
Yeah, the catch there, and this is kind of like still an early phase, so there's additional things that we'd probably want to automate around this, but the catch there is that, so we need to go into the JCR and give it a decent name.
So that's why it's just 0, because it's just a JCR node like you'd see it being, just Magnolia gave it the name of 0. So we're gonna give it a friendlier name.
So go into our JCR and find that new node and just call it hero with video. So at this point, if we were to be back on that page, that modal would show hero with video instead of 0. But we want to take it one step further. We have this property that we're looking for in the REST API called template thumbnail. And that's really just a path to an image in the DAM that will show up as the thumbnail image. So I already have that here, so I'm just going to drop it in. And if we go back to our page now, let's see, do I need to reload? Maybe. If we go back to our page, we should see like there's our new thumbnail and our new relevant name. So this would be now officially available to web producers and authors and editors, like to be able to drop it in on any page. There are some actual additional steps for our dev workflow, though. So
that's pretty cool, Nick, but it looks kind of messed up.
Yeah, it is messed up because it needs some style there. So we might need to add style. We might need to add JavaScript. We might need to add a whole template or other things front-end wise. So for our style, namespace, we use SAS or CSS prefix for our WPL. This case, I'm just going to give it an extra dash demo here. But typically, we'll add this WPL class to our patterns, and then in our SAS files, we can just do CSS that way. So by saving this, it'll kick off a gulp process that will rebuild the SAS and get our CSS minified. So that'll just kind of give us to the point where we have this, looks a lot better, should match the design pretty close.
It's a lot bigger.
It is a lot bigger. All right.
Sorry.
So our dev workflow, that would be just from the front end side doing templates, CSS, JavaScript. We'll typically use something like source tree to commit those changes. Once we commit our code to the author branch or push it to the author branch remotely, which we use branches dedicated to environments. So that's like the author branch is the Magnolia author instance, the proof branch is our proof instance, so on. So, once we push that to Bitbucket, we have a couple things happen. The first thing that goes through, we have HipChat notifications go through, tell the team who's pushing what into what branch. So we can kind of get an idea of what the current state of development's going on. This is probably more pertinent to William, but it's useful to, if you're in collaboration on the same project, to know where things are. It also kind of gives you an idea of when you see that push branch to author, you know that there's going to be a Bamboo deploy happening soon. So as soon as a push to author happens, we have this tool, this product Bamboo, which is continuous integration. So that gives us a good UI to manage our deployments. But by pushing that code to author, it kicks off a process. And that's basically rebuilding our author resources. So here you can see what it looks like in Bamboo. You can kind of see there's a progress bar that tells you like the current build. It's going to take about another 3 or 4 minutes. It gives us statistics on the latest builds, how long, the success rate, gives you a history breakdown. This is just useful for us to figure out where we are during our deployments, resource deployments.
Yeah, we're basically advertising our dev tools right here. But I'm just curious, how many people here, does anybody here use Bitbucket? Yeah, cool, awesome, sweet, great. And Bamboo? Yeah, he does, awesome. All right, cool. Yeah, he set all this up. Thank you, Greg. And then what else do we show? Source tree?
Yeah.
Use source tree? It works with Git too. I don't use it either.
Yeah.
And then HipChat? Sweet. Slack? Just kidding.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so this is more or less just walking through our dev workflow, specifically to the front end resources. Once Bamboo finishes building, we get this extra notification in our deployment room that tells us the build's finished. It'll either tell us that there was a success or there was a fail. I think we're probably at 95% success, something like that. So yeah, and that kind of gives us an indication that, okay, so now we can go into that environment and see our changes. There is about a 3 to 4 minute window where we don't have to just sit there waiting and refreshing. Get a good, clear indication that it's ready.
So just a quick side note, I know that in 5.4 and more, there's more talk about loading resources from the file system and stuff like that. And I just wanted to we've been doing this for a while. This has been a hack that from way back in Magnolia 4 that we've always preferred to deploy our resources from the file system separately. Like we've always had our template files, our CSS files, and our JavaScript resources in a separate repo from our app. And we still continue to work that way. It's just an easy configuration on our side. But I keep hearing about this thing called Docker. Apparently it's going to solve all the world's problems, but we won't need that anymore either. But I just wanted to just point that out since we're talking about our builds. In reality, all our builds really are is a gulp, npm gulp process, minifies our CSS and our JavaScript, compiles all of our SAS files, and then we're basically just doing a git clone on the server to point to those resources.
Okay, so we have that pattern in the page. We did our code deployment. We should probably finish the page. So this would be the point where web producer editor would go in and add that new pattern to the page they were building. Let's do one more demo. So we'll go into our demo page, and we can just add from here our thumbnail really quickly. Let's just move it up to the top.
And this would be a good point where I saw that tweak earlier where
the insert before.
Yeah. That would have been,
yeah.
This would be a perfect use for that.
So there's our page, and we're all done. No video yet, but that's okay.
But you can see from that example that we have the JavaScript there and everything.
Yeah, we just need to find. We would have an actual YouTube ID there.
So yeah, basically what we just did was we took a new design from a designer. We built out most of that design just using what we had existing in our web pattern library, because that designer actually used the web pattern library as their starting point. So we did have a new piece. So we were able to take that new piece, drop it in, show you guys how our new WPL neat tweak works. We added that to a new page, and I think, we didn't show how everything's responsive too, because like we don't have to, but I mean, it's like what we're really trying to do here is, it's like a lot of what other people were saying, like you're concerned about SEO, so all of our SEO best practices that we've employed, they're going to carry on through these templates. Any kind of CSS tweaks that we've done to really make things work great on mobile and iPads and different devices in terms of responsive, that's all going to carry through. So we just found ourselves doing so much CSS all over the place to solve different little design tweaks and little patterns. So the more that we can unify around this, pattern library, we got the same CSS being used. We showed you our tools in Magnolia, in our Atlassian tools, how we do our deploys and get alerts in HipChat and all that. And also showed off how awesome Nick is for implementing all this stuff. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, there's some other next steps, like maybe some automatic import-export stuff. Automatic thumbnails would be great because that's kind of a manual process right now. But yeah, really the main concept is just managing that chaos and not sacrificing the speed to web page creation.
And does anybody have any questions? Since we actually went through that way faster than I
thought. Yeah, we did.
You guys better make up some questions.
Actually, I have a question.
Okay, cool. Wait.
So in terms of next steps, what are the challenges that you had with doing templates, and particularly the design library kind of needing a wizard approach in terms of what you can mix and match together?
Yeah, that would be really great to have to really enforce the dialogues into a wizard approach where you have your fields are really more or less locked into these patterns. A lot of the early structure of these patterns right now use our building blocks, so you can kind of manipulate them pretty well. But if we wanted to lock in the concepts even more, maybe using some kind of another REST approach to get configurations on the dialogue and building that dialogue with JavaScript or something like that. We could do things like that. Yeah.
Cool. Does anyone else have questions? Yaman's got a question.
Yeah. It's okay, I can just shout.
I think for the cameras, they have
Okay.
questions on here.
So you had this nice thumbnails with the components which you were adding in. Did you thought of maybe contributing that back? It looked really nice, unless you're generating them manually.
Well, think about it. You're gonna have to talk to our licensing department. No, yeah, dude, definitely. Yeah, that'd be cool. Very hot question. And thank you, that's a good endorsement. Appreciate that.
I was wondering if we ever just let the designers make a web page, since they made the blessed designs to begin with, and they already have a layout for the whole page. Can we just let them make the page themselves?
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, we should do that.
Yeah, no, I've been trying to get our designers to be using Magnolia more instead of working in design tools like in Photoshop or Illustrator or Sketch or whatever. Get them just to use Magnolia. I mean, our designers aren't super technical in terms of they're not those type of designers that know HTML and CSS. But I think we could get them in there as a starting point. It would be huge because they'd be able to understand how the whole thing works and really think responsive, that's been a very difficult challenge for us in terms of, we get these nice design layouts, but they hardly ever take into account responsive view or what happens when things get smaller. So just in terms of where things break points, all that. So yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, I think to add to that, designers could really be the ones adding sections and things like that to the pattern library page in Magnolia itself.
Right.
And that could be or maybe should be the source of truth for their patterns instead of the sketch file or something like that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I got a question for you guys since we have a little time. How many people here work in the same type of group setting that we do, like where you have developers and designers working together? Not that many, so this talk was worthless for you. Okay, cool. That's been a huge. Would this type of thing be useful for you guys, or do you do anything like this now? I guess that's the question.
So for us, for example, we kind of build our own little patterns by themselves, like each atom of the component. So each editor can do its own little design, I guess, but we don't have it like a way that's very useful that the pattern library can translate into what the designers are trying to do.
Yeah. I think like in the past when designs would come our way, we'd always be trying to think of it in a global way. Like, okay, we'd ask those questions when we'd receive the design. Like, okay, how is this going to be reused? Like, are you thinking that way? Like, is this something what we're going to, it was always like, yeah, and we build it in that way. But then the next time a design comes in, none of that stuff is being used. And we'd be like, wait, and so that's how we just get so fragmented. So like, really making a conscious effort to reel that in, it takes a lot of discipline. That's why I kind of made the point of like using the term blessed when it came to like adding a new video component, because I didn't want to make it seem like we just add whatever to it. It really should have some conscious thought that like this is going to be something that's going to live on. And it's not saying we're stuck in that forever. It'll still evolve there, right? But they should be evolving that.
Well, that's because of the number of designers.
And we have a lot of designers.
Working in silos.
Yeah, working in silos. So that is a slight problem. So hopefully this fills it in. This is really a relatively new concept for us. It seems obvious. It seems right there. But when you're, like I said, like when you're moving fast and like doing things very quickly and iterating like we do with all these different types of content, it just gets out of control.
Yes, so one thing you'll see, because we do this a lot, we call it building a brand asset catalog.
Okay, yeah.
What we'll see is some have different development teams. And so you'll have using your versioning is basically you'll start tagging those to this is version 1.0 of the catalog, and then you'll have another group over somewhere else still extending that catalog and taking it to 1.2, 1.3, and then coordinating the testing between those. It starts to get fun and also a little complicated, but there's a lot of efficiencies there.
That's great. Yeah, I'd love to talk to you more about how you actually manage that in like a workflow discipline. We've come up with some different things, but they've been really hard to follow so far. So
yeah. It's tricky, but once you get in there, it really comes together.
That's great. Yeah, cool.
I think Barry had a question.
Do we have a convenient way or a roadmap to say we have like 10 pages that use the hero with video component? If we decide to change that component and have those changes reflect on all of the pages that already use the component, do we have a way of kind of like cascading those changes? I guess we have CSS.
If it's style or JavaScript, it'll cascade by itself, like as soon as we change it. If it's more of a configuration, then that would need to be some kind of something that we could roll out to those nodes. So that is something.
What we showed today, everything's really, it's kind of locked into content, so it's not, if we change a template, it won't cascade through, which sucks. But we're working on that. Like that's like that's one of the next steps, the next levels of like.
Yeah, it's really just content that's kind of not going to be changed. Or if you were to add a new field, that obviously wouldn't live in that
But I think we should make it so that works.
Mhm.
That would be way better.
Yeah.
Trying to think of any other questions for this group.
I'm hoping we can tempt Jan into responding to what are our thoughts about integration. YAML using this REST API to extract content from Magnolia and then as a YAML snippet and integrate that into some of our other systems, which for instance might use a website as a page sort of technology.
Yeah, YAML as content. Yeah. We do have those certain microsite type pages that the content is YAML based, and supposedly that makes it easier for people to edit content sometimes. But yeah, if we could get that to be served up, I guess, through Magnolia.
Yeah, basically we have a whole section of our site that's not using Magnolia, and it's a React app, and we need to figure out a way to manage that content in Magnolia. And I think like your guys' talk really kind of got us thinking, and also just like, and right now all the content is in YAML, so I don't know, we could have some sort of connector with YAML to just make it work. I don't know, but yeah. So, but that was really inspiring from you guys, because really, like, we were just yesterday talking about using REST APIs to like use Magnolia. Like, don't always think of Magnolia as this whole giant system, but also that it's really awesome content management system. You can use just that piece if you want, because that's what it's awesome at. And like, just, you know, you can use that piece and connect to any system you want, getting that output in JSON. So. I think that's a hugely powerful piece of Magnolia. Did you want to respond to that?
Maybe I do.
Ooh, good job, Earl.
Okay, so regarding the JSON question, using the REST API, yes, there is the built-in REST endpoint, but there is also another neat library called JSON-FN, and what it does for you, it allows you just via templating functions in your FTL to express anything as JSON array. Not only that, but if you have also some pieces of content which are interconnected, say you have, I don't know, some contact, it's stuck with something, so you have some category assigned to it, or you have some image under it. With that library, you can get it directly translated, expand it, so in the generated JSON, you don't see the ID of the other node, you already see maybe link to it, maybe name of it, etc. So that's one library that you can use, yes?
Where is the JSON at then?
It's on GitHub. It's just the thing. It was experiment. It's not part of the product. It's just like those neat tweaks. It was something that I had desire to try to exploit, and I did it over a couple of nights, and it was just there. Yes.
And it's on your blog post there.
And there is a blog post. Yes, you need to go back. Yeah. So that's one of those things. The other one about exporting content into YAML, that's absolutely possible. It's not exposed, but I have the code somewhere on my laptop.
Nice.
And the thing is, it's actually quite easy. It's very easy to do it. It's also possible to do it the other way around. So from YAML, you could import back into the repository. If you have some arbitrary YAML that you want to get into the repository or into the content in repo, that would be more difficult because you would need to figure out the transformation between your arbitrary structure and the structure which is in Magnolia. But technically, that's very easy and it's absolutely doable. So I'll be sharing that piece of code somewhere perhaps.
Nice. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Jan. That's awesome. So I think we could probably end it on that note. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, Magnolia, very flexible, neat tweaks. Check them out.
Yeah. Thanks.